are listening to Talking Hoosier Baseball,
a podcast
by fans from the IUBase.com website.
For anyone wanting more information on the Indiana University baseball program.
Welcome to this very special edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. We are recording this on Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. I'm Casty Palmer, joined by the master of the RPI, Carl James, the creator of IUBase.com, Josh Bennett, and our guest, Indiana University Baseball head coach, Jeff Mercer. Coach Mercer is entering his third season with the Hoosiers. He was previously at Wright State, where he had a 39-17 record, including 22-6 record in league play. While at Wright State, Coach Mercer had the first ever top 100 ranked recruiting class in program history. In his first season at IU, Coach Mercer led the squad to a Big Ten regular season title and was the Big Ten Coach of the Year. And I guess with the way 2020 ended up, IU is still the reigning Big Ten champion. So we'll go with that. So kind of maybe 2 years in a row. So Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show with us this evening.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'll take I guess a pseudo back-to-back teaching as an effect of the carryover year, but I guess there could be worse things to be called than that.
All right, Coach, I'll get us started on the questions here tonight. So when you first arrived in Bloomington, you said that your first goal was to build a coaching staff around you that could share your vision for the program. So after 2+ seasons, how do you feel the staff has done?
Well, I think anytime you're thinking about running a high-level organization, the question has to be is first who and then what, right? First, who do we want to be a part of what we're going to try to do? And then what are we going to try to do? And so that was the first question that we asked. And that we really spent a lot of time analyzing. And that was one that we felt incredibly fortunate and comfortable to answer. With the coaches that we have at Indiana, it's, what I always kind of joke, but it's the truth. You try to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and better than you, and then try to catch up to them every day. And that's what I feel like we've done with the coaching staff, and watching those guys work every day, watching the growth of the program, knowing that every day I show up with the coaching staff, I know that I personally am going to be pushed, and I know that our players are going to be pushed, and I know that the incredible investment that they have. So Indiana is incredibly fortunate to have Justin and Derek and Denton and Dan and everybody that's involved in the program. We are very fortunate, and it couldn't have gone any better than it has to this point. But I think the important question, like I always say, is first who and then what. But to have the right people a part of it, the right people can solve any problem, right? And there's always problems to solve. And if you have the right folks, you can analyze and break anything down and accomplish it, and we have.
So assistant turnover is common for a successful program, and that's already occurred here. So how difficult is it bringing in new pieces to the coaching puzzle once you have things set?
Well, once you have the program moving in the general direction that you would like, it's always difficult, but not quite as hard as it may seem. Especially once you have relationships and people in the community and the coaching community, I should say. And so, as Casey, as you alluded to, as Casey went and joined the Yankees player development staff, Derek was my first phone call. I've known Derek for 10 years, and to have somebody like that come and be a part of the staff was just thrilling, and his impact, the ripple effect of that is wide-reaching and been terrific. So, it is a little bit, it's not easy. It is difficult, but it's not quite as hard as it seems. Once you build a reputation and once you have relationships, to go and to find quality people that want to be a part of a place like Indiana. So, it took us about a week to finalize things with Derek and have him on campus, and it was a very exciting time, and it's been terrific.
So, Coach, a big part of your development program is focused on individual work with your players. In the spring, after everyone was sent home due to COVID-19, you turned this into sort of a remote program. Walk us through how that was developed and what you think was accomplished.
Well, we have to go back a little bit to where we started at, and necessarily from a technology standpoint. So we always talk about kind of having a process of a crawl, walk, run when it comes to technology. And we love it. We love to implement it, but it needs to be done in a conducive way that allows first us to understand it and then us to implement it in a way that everyone can work cohesively together and comprehend it and implement it and apply it. So that was the beginning of this process, probably 2 years ago now. And so we had begun to use track profiles through Driveline. We began to use the track man data in a bit of a unique way. Denton leads the charge on that. Our BAT system with a lot of the video analysis, and so we had already begun to transition into more of a football model where you practice or play, and then instead of practicing for 3 hours, let's watch video on the game, analyze that, and then implement what we actually need to strategically. So those things had already been in place. And so as the season ended, what we were able to do then is just fully integrate ourselves into that model. So individualize the track profiles, invest into those. Those have their daily calendars, all their video, every scrimmage, every game at bat that they have, all of their different metrics, all of those are housed in those databases. And so we were able to utilize those, break those things down with those guys, make suggestions and adjustments that we wanted to make for summer ball, invest in their training profiles, the mobility work, all that stuff through there. And then we went back step by step and watched realistically every pitch of the season, and then applied how we would have adjusted or applied the approaches or the decisions that we made, the base running, the defense, the cuts and relays. So we broke off into obviously pitching, but then we had pitching, we had catching, infielders, outfielders, base running, and then hitters, all those individual groups and where you fit. And then we met several days a week, went through every pitch of the season and broke those things down. Realistically, when you're talking about winning at an extremely high level at this level, the games are a 2-run game in the 7th inning, one way or the other. They're swing late, and you find a way to win them or you lose them. And so how do we evaluate ourselves to be able to be in those moments like we were this year? And you're in the LSU series and Ole Miss, and you're at East Carolina and South Alabama, terrific teams that you're playing against. San Diego was outstanding. How do you find a way to have those swing moments to value all of the outs in essence? So that's what we did with those guys. Went through it. We also watched. Funny enough, I went back through and I found my favorite playoff games when I was in college. 2004 Red Sox, when they came back and they won the World Series, and some of the Cardinals teams actually that Scott was a part of, and some of those different series. So I would pick a game that I thought was really impactful in my my career watching, and we would watch it, break them into groups, and then we would go back and watch them together as a team. What did you think? What did you see? How did you break this down? How did you analyze this? The physical ability is terrific, but the ability to play the game at the requisite speed is the differentiator. It's what separates those 2-run games one way or the other. And so we focused our time after we spent our time individualizing and trying to break things down and put together a great plan for those guys. Then it was, how do we be better at playing baseball? How do we learn the game better? How do we implement the game better? And overall, I felt like it was a terrific experience, and a lot of really good things were able to come from that. And oftentimes that's how life works, where you have a moment where it can be the worst possible thing, right? Like having your season canceled, although it's not really the worst possible thing that could happen, right? It's a bad thing that could happen, and you have a decision. Is this going to debilitate us? Is this going to be as worse as it can be? Or we have an opportunity to find a real positive in this. Can we grow from this? Can we improve from this? And everybody in their walk of life every day is met with those decisions, and the answer that we give ultimately leads to our demise or our success. And so we chose to find a way to grow in the areas that we were deficient in a really young team, which we were. We made some really poor mistakes at times, right? We won some big games and did some good things, and then we did some things where it was like, man, that was a really knucklehead move. right? So you have to learn from those. The only way to do it is to watch it and learn and be in an environment that's conducive to learning.
So, Coach, it was made clear when you came to IU that your focus was on player development. This was a bit of a stated change for a program that had, at that point, hung its hat on recruiting for the years immediately prior. Now, though it looks like your staff has been successful at leveraging player development as a recruiting tool, that's definitely true as well. You've definitely expanded the recruiting map and have the highest ranked IU class ever on its way in 2021. It seemed like we keep seeing that build the monster, the tweets like clockwork. What do you think the recruiting success is coming from?
Well, I think like anything in life, you have to earn the right to be able to recruit great players. You have to earn it, and they don't give it to you. And so we had to go and we had to earn that. We had to be able to coach our players at a very high level. You have to think about what can you be the best in the world at. And we often make this decision in our lives daily. What can we be the best in the world at? Well, the two things for us are personal relationships. We can build terrific personal relationships. That's just a decision, and that's an investment. That's how much effort you want to put in. So build and create a terrific personal relationship, be the best in the world at that. And the second piece that builds upon that is we can be the best at player development. Right? We can do that. We can invest ourselves completely into that one thing, or those two things. But if I am invested completely into building a relationship into player development, then through the work, I can earn the right to recruit great players. And so what do you do with the players that you have? What's the experience that they have? So when we come in the first year, and they were wonderful, wonderful boys and talented players, when you come in the first year and you win the Big Ten championship for the first time in 5 or 7 years, and you have 10 players drafted, and you're a top 3 or 4 team in the country in draft picks and in the program record. And that's not saying in a bragging way, but when you're looking at recruiting and you're saying, hey, are you going to be able to do the things that you say you can do, right? You have to earn it. Everyone can say you can do it. You can say whatever you want. I can tell you that I'm the best hitting coach in the country. I can say I'm the best pitching coach in the country. Can you actually do it, right? And so great players want to become the best that they can be. That's as simple as it works, as we all do. If I was a swimmer and I was a great swimmer, I want to be the best swimmer. And that's why I'm good. That's why I'm good now. I want to be around people that can help me be the absolute best at what I'm passionate about. And so when you look at recruiting, it's all about, are you willing to invest the time and effort into building a true relationship with the young people and the families that you value? You can't recruit 1,000 people and build real, true, lasting relationships and invest in them. Can you outline the characteristics and the integrity and the work ethic and the values and the passion that you shared with a family? And then can you outline a plan in which you can show that you can help their son or grandson or the person they care about become the best player that they possibly can be? Can you produce that over everyone else? And so we are capable of doing both of those things. And ultimately, if you earn the right to recruit great players, and then you do the things that you say you're going to do, which we do. What we say we will do, we will do. What we say we can produce, we can, and we have, and we will continue. So when you do that, you have an opportunity to be in conversations with great players. And we've been very fortunate to be able to have a multitude of terrific players commit to come to Indiana, and we're very excited for the future. But I will go back to, I'll reiterate the point, is you have to earn it, and you have to be able to produce what you say you can produce. And if not, everybody's got hats. Everybody's got nice buses. Everybody's got gear. Everyone's got a nice field. Nice fields and gear and nice facilities, they don't win games. Right? There's a lot of people that lose games with nice fields.
So, Coach, what's the most important thing you want a player taking from being in your program when they leave IU?
What I want them to be able to do when they leave Indiana is I want them to be a fully self-sustained a young man that can be a terrific problem solver for the rest of their life. If they can do those things, if they can analyze, put a process together, and solve problems, then they're going to go and be successful whatever they want to go do. I don't care if these guys love baseball, right? It's like if you choose to come to Indiana, obviously you're passionate about baseball. You wouldn't come if you didn't. But you don't have to do that. Like when you're talking to young recruits and stuff, it's like I don't necessarily care. Whatever you're passionate about, go do it. If it's baseball, great. Come to Indiana, or if you want to play the piano, go play the piano. But whatever you're passionate about, whatever makes you happy, whatever you enjoy in your life, put a plan together, have a process, and become a problem solver to be able to overcome the obstacles that are going to be in the way of you pursuing your passion. Now, fortunately for us, the vast majority of our guys, their passion is baseball, but not all of them are going to play Major League Baseball, as we all know. Right? They may go into business. Some of our guys will go into the military, right? Some of our guys will go be teachers. Terrific, wonderful. Go be a passionate problem solver who's able to put a process together to achieve whatever it is that makes you happy in your life and live a wonderful, fruitful life. That's what I hope they can do when they leave. And I'm going to be hard on them, and I'm going to push them, and I'm going to be all over them, but I'm also going to be the guy that when you need a pick-me-up text or you need an arm around you, I'm going to be there too. But we are going to push, and it is hard, but anything worth having is.
With player development being the staple of the program's focus, how do you balance that with the expectations of winning?
You're going to laugh at me, but I never talk about winning. I never talk about winning, and we never talk about losing. All we ever talk about is the plan and the process to become the best version of ourselves. My responsibility every day when I show up is to be the best version of myself and to play my part in becoming the best version of this unit, right? So the unit can be the best version of themselves. Winning, and I don't say this in a bragging way, but we've won, and we've always won. Anything that we've had our hands on for long enough to have an impact, we've been successful at. And it's purely the outcome of the plan, but it's never the plan. The process is the process, and the outcome is out of our control. And so I do think, I know that sounds cliche, but we'll say this, is that when I don't worry about the outcome whatsoever, I relieve all stress from myself of a preconceived notion of how this should play out. And relieving stress and relieving anxiety and forgiving myself for a momentary lapse or a mistake is vitally important to ultimately achieving what I want to achieve. So my thing is, I always tell guys this, when I can't sleep at night, like most coaches can't sleep at night, right? Like most parents can't sleep at night. When I can't sleep at night, it's not because I worry about, are we going to win or lose? Or are we going to go to a regional? That's not what I'm concerned about. My concern is Grant Richardson, is his glove broken in the right way? That gives me anxiety. Like, is Drew Ashley swinging the right size back? Is Brendan Rose scap mobility? Is it where it needs to be at to keep his arm healthy? Like, those are the things that go through my mind. Is McCabe Brown's hip mobility where it needs to be at, and what do we need to do to make sure that that's the right place? Whatever it is. Like, those are the things that we all, not just me, like I'm not unique, the entire staff are obsessed with. And so then the outcome is the outcome, because you don't ever like I'll always say this about for us and for the coaches, Justin and Ben and everybody. There's normally never a catastrophic problem because we're so obsessed over like the details and the process of it that everything's a big deal to us. So then nothing ends up actually being a really big deal in the end. And then winning normally takes care of itself. But I'll say this: if we don't win at some point and sometime or another, it is what it is. It is what it is, right? You've done everything you can. Have you recruited as hard as you can recruit? Have you coached as hard as you can coach? Have you been as diligent as you can be in planning? And if it works, terrific. And if it doesn't, there was nothing you could have done. So there's no regrets. So you go through it. The only time I get upset is when we don't prepare it and when we don't do our best to execute a plan. Besides that, I'll have no problems.
So, Coach, we've been talking with a lot of guys over the last few months, and every guy returning that we've talked to so far mentions unfinished business and disappointment that they couldn't play last season and show what they could do and what they were capable of of accomplishing before the season was shut down? I know that it's a moot point right now, but would you give us your thoughts on that?
It was a really unique group in the sense that they had created their own identity, and as a coach, your job is to help foster that growth and help create guiding principles for an identity for a group. But ultimately, it's their decision and it's their personalities. I tell guys every day, whatever you dream about having as a program, whatever the perfect environment is, we get to create that every day. So if you want to have the most fun, you want to have the best time, you want to be the hardest working, and look forward to that, then come create it every day and show up ready to go and do those things, and we can have that. It's all yours. And that group did that. And so whenever you have that as the guiding principle, I think you have a chance to do some really unique things. As far as where you end up is in line with your physical abilities, right? Physical ability is always going to be a limiting factor, but you can maximize that. So for that group, I felt like their limiting factor of physical ability was going to be extremely pushed, meaning, are we going to win a national championship last year? I don't know. I know that group felt like they could, right? In their heart, like they truly felt like that was a true belief. And it's hard. Like those things are incredibly difficult to do. And I'll never detour that. But I know that they felt like in their heart they could compete with anybody in the country. By the end of the season, they were going to be able to do that. And that made me very proud. Made me very proud of their confidence and their belief and their work ethic. When you ever have true confidence can't be bought. You have to earn it. And those boys show up every day. They did the work to earn the right to be that confident, and they believe in those things. So that group now gets to carry over as an extension into this year. And you see many of the same guiding principles from them. But this group will have to create their own identity. This group will have to create their own way. And I'm confident that they will. But I do think that we could have done similar things as to the year before in a really strong conference. But where you just compete and you work your way through the year. And when your goal is not necessarily to win or to lose, but to be the best version of yourself in the last month of the year to give yourself a chance to win, then you do have a chance. And we did that 2 years ago. And I think that group would have put themselves in a position where in the last 3 or 4 weeks to be able to compete for a conference championship. And if they would have pulled it off, you never know. But I do think they could have been in that position and then to compete in the NCAA tournament after that.
So you're not only the head coach, but also the de facto hitting coach. How difficult was implementing your hitting approach to a brand new program?
It took a little bit of time, but here's what I will say. So the first year, the boys were terrific. They were terrific. I made some mistakes too. Right? So we hit a bunch of home runs, scored a bunch of runs, and it was good. Like those things were good, right? And so from a biomechanics standpoint, from a kinetic standpoint, an object in motion tends to stay in motion, except active home and outside force, all those things, right? We did a really good job. And those boys took it really well. I didn't do a good enough job of early on seeing where we were going and making an adjustment as far as a pitch recognition and approach and understanding that we needed to be able to adjust, to be able to really maximize that offense, right? We had some outlier tools that we were able to adjust and say, hey, we need to be able to move like this, stretch like this, make contact like this. And at a very, very high end, we could score runs in bunches, which was good. But living and learning, this was as we all do, right? We're all living and learning, and my ability to communicate earlier and better, I think, will help. It is difficult. When you're starting at zero, right? You're starting at zero, and you're from an implementation of what you value, right? So that's what I mean zero. Obviously, those players were not at zero. They were good players and they're good kids. But you're trying to relay ideas that they have no basis with a relationship from you. So like I explain something in a certain way, and it's like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard like that before. It's like, okay, this is going to take some time to build that relationship. So it was difficult at first. The boys listened and they applied really, really well. The vast majority of it, I didn't do a good enough job of being able to communicate some of those things and articulate. in a good enough fashion to be able to help that offense truly go from, it was a really good offense, right? We led the country in home runs for 99% of the year. We led the conference in runs scored and did those things. But as I look back at myself, I could have done better, and I've made adjustments and haven't been better. So it's hard at first. The boys did a really good job, but you just have, every year you have to grow. Like I look back at myself as a hitting coach 5 years ago, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I did that, and I can't believe I taught that. Like, how did I not know this? And I'm sure in 5 years I'll say like, man, I'm so much better than I was 5 years ago. And I think that is a great point about all of the coaches. We're humble enough to know that there's a vast ocean of information out there, and we're drinking out of the fire hose as fast as we can and trying to implement it as quickly as we can. But it is hard. I feel like now we have a great blend of both, and I think it showed. You look at last year, we averaged over 6 runs a game on a Friday night. And 2 years ago, we averaged, I think, 3 runs a game on a Friday night. And we had some data points that really skewed that 2 years ago, where I think we had a couple of Friday night games where we scored more like 10 plus runs. So realistically, we were like at a 2 or below, probably realistically on a competitive Friday night, and it's just unacceptable. And you look at what we were able to do last year after having like the whole offense drafted, where you're scoring in excess of 6 runs a game against the most difficult part of that schedule, right? The first month or so, first 6 weeks are very, very difficult. So we over doubled our run production against the most difficult part of the schedule. To me, is a true indicator of your ability to produce runs, not just home runs. You look at your walk to strikeout ratio, your free base strikeout ratio, you look at your on base percentage. We made a lot of improvements, a lot of adjustments, and we'll continue to do so.
So without giving away too many secrets and maybe going too much in depth, because I know you could probably talk about this for a week, but what are some of the most important trademarks of your hitting approach?
So, and guys give me a hard time for this sometimes, but you have to create the maximum amount of bat speed that your body can physically create. The rationale behind that is, and it's not just my opinion. So, like I said before, like an object in motion tends to stay in motion, right? So, if I can create a maximum amount of bat speed, what I have to do is I have to have a sequence and I have to create a bat path. Because if I without going into like the whole thing, but if I can create the maximum amount of bat speed, what that does is it forces me to be on plane early. Because if I'm changing direction through the bat path, then the object slows. Anytime an object changes direction, it has to slow. So if I'm slowing, right? If I'm slowing, what I have to do now is I have to make decisions sooner. Good early decisions are poor decisions, right? Late decisions are good decisions. So if I have maximum amount of bat speed, what I do is, one, I give myself maximum room for air because I cover the entire field from a plane, right? From a plane standpoint, I'm on path so I can catch a ball deep, middle, or out front. So I create maximum room for air for my plane. I create the maximum amount of adjustability because I can make decisions late in the process, which are good decisions, and be able to adjust. And I create brake systems along the way. So there's like 4 or 5 different breaks that we'll talk about, different points where we can make decisions and be able to apply the barrel to the ball. I don't have to be an upper half dominant mover. I can be a lower half dominant mover and create the centrifugal force and all the different stuff with my lower half, right? So that's the first thing, is you have to create a maximum amount of bat speed because everything is reliant on that sequence to move right. The second thing is the ability, and this is really simple, but can you swing at strikes and take balls, right? At its most basic level, if I can't swing at strikes and take balls, then I can't play this game at a high level because everything is a function of that. But if I can't create maximum amount of bat speed, then it makes it incredibly more difficult for me to be able to recognize pitches, to swing at strikes and take balls, and to be able to have a quality at bat. So if I can do those two things, if I can create a maximum amount of bat speed, and if I can have a zone awareness, I can create offensive ability now, right? So I can increase my on-base percentage. And if I increase my on-base percentage, then by default, I have to swing at better pitches. If I swing at better pitches and I create bat speed, I'll increase my slug, right? So now I've got my ability to have on-base percentage and plus slug, and that's how runs are scored. You can't just slug, right? You can't just slug, and you can't just have on base. There's got to be a blend of both. So those are the two main points for us, and our approaches in our pitch selection. All of those are advanced concepts on the basic one of being able to recognize and attack a strike and taking the ball. And I thought that we did a much better job of that this past year. And that was my fault. The first year was not the boys. I didn't do a good enough job, and I take full responsibility. And we adjusted, and we got better in our practices. And then you could see the result on the field where we had a combination of the two. And I think humility wins, right? Like be able to analyze yourself. Like I was kind of joke with the players. I'm like, hey, I know you think practice is intense. You should come to the coach's meeting. Like you better bring your lunch pail and some thick skin because we're gonna be there for a while. And there's like it's like I'm not exempt, and nobody's exempt in the whole program. You've got to be able to make adjustments and improve. Ultimately, the organization is the top priority. Not me, not anybody individually. It's the health of the organization, and we all have to be able to work together to create the most healthy organization possible.
So analytics play a big part and appear to even be a backbone of the approach. But how can just your everyday fan in the bleachers notice that a player is getting it as far as approach goes?
Well, the first thing you're going to see is the misses are a lot better misses, right? So if you're, I stick from an offensive standpoint. So you look at a miss, like a swing that doesn't produce a fair, hard hit ball, right? So you look at a good miss. You're looking at a quality miss as like 100-mile-an-hour foul ball straight back. You're looking at a hard, like deflected, hard line drive over the opposite dugout. You're looking at a sky high, like really spun high, true fly ball. So those are indicators of a really quality move with the bat. When you see flared balls, like soft flared balls off, when you see surrounded and hooked balls into the ground foul, those are really poor quality misses, right? Those are misses that I'm looking at saying, if I'm watching a game, it's like, and that's a bad miss, right? So there's the first thing. The second thing is going to be is the ability to understand the strike zone. So you're looking at, can this guy recognize a breaking ball, right? We're swinging at breaking balls that bounce 2 feet in front of the plate. It's like that. At no point in time was that ever going to be a strike. That was never, when the ball left the hand, it was never going to be a strike. The trajectory of that pitch halfway to you was never going to be in the strike zone. So you either panicked or you were unable to recognize and then execute a swing, which is either a flaw or you don't have an understanding of the approach of how to hit. So things like that. Swinging at fastballs that are out of the zone above, like not like the belt. I'm talking like you see neck high, something like that. So when you start seeing guys that are able to really shrink the strike zone and have quality misses when they do miss, because we all miss, you're going to start to see a guy begin to understand that. When you look at situationally, have an awareness. For example, runner on second and third, let's say there's a right on right, right? Like a right on right matchup. Let's say this: right-handed pitcher, left-handed batter, right-handed guy on deck, right? Second and third, 1 out. So it's like the pitcher is going to Grant Richardson. This is not a great matchup for that pitcher. This is not a great matchup, right? You have a bag open. So when you watch Grant's ability to have an at-bat in that moment, right? And it's like, is he going to allow this guy to work around him and take the walk? Is he going to expand the zone and give his at-bat away? Because if Grant will allow them, they'll walk him on like 5 pitches. It will, right? The question is Grant going to allow him to do that? Because what that pitcher wants is now he wants a right-on-right matchup with the bases loaded and 1 out rather than the matchup he's getting right now, which is a terrible one for him. Double play ball back to the plate, strike out, whatever it is, the match is much more conducive for him to be successful. So with Grant up there is Grant able to understand the situation to be able to work his way through that? Furthermore, let's say Grant's in a full count, base open, righty on deck. He's getting an off-speed pitch, right? Like we all know it. Like everybody in the ballpark knows it. So is he swinging at the 3-2 changeup that bounces in front of the plate, or the slider off the plate, or is he able to take that the ball forward, go to first base, and trust pull ball or whoever else is behind him? Things like that, right? The ability to understand the game, analyze the game, have your misses be good misses, and execute a plan. I think those are all indicators of understanding how metrics or how all the different technology works into it. And I'll say beyond that too is you'll look at the ability for us to execute a plan against a certain spin profile. For example, you look at Cole Henry last year from LSU, two completely different plus fastball variations, which you never see. You're looking at like a 14 to 18 inch horizontal action on a two-seamer to his arm side. You're looking like a 20 to 21 inch vertical action on a four-seamer to his glove side. Completely unique and separate pitches. You're not hitting that guy very well. So it's like elevate pitch counts. We were, I think, 76 pitches before innings. So when you do that, now you set yourself up for the rest of the weekend, right? So you look at, we're able to be in the game the second game. We get beat the first game. I think we're tied in the eighth in the second game. Don't play ball. And then by the time the third game comes around, we're in a really advantageous position because they went to their bullpen in the fifth or sixth inning of a Friday. We're able to get to the third starter, and we run away with it, and they don't have the bullpen depth to be able to kind of stop the bleeding, for lack of a better term. So all of those things are guys that are starting to get it and understand it. And then you have, there's a million different ways. Obviously, spin profiles on the mound. If a guy is a prominent supinator, not a quality pronator, are you trying to have this guy throw a changeup? It's like he's never going to throw a changeup. He's got to throw a cover, right? Because a guy is a really quality pronator and is not going to be able to supinate, doesn't get around pitches. Or you're trying to have this guy throw a cutter or a slider, he's just not going to be able to do it. Like work off of the changeup, things like that are all based off of the metrics and all based off the spin profiles and things like that. So that's a little bit more in depth, a little bit more difficult to see with the naked eye. But the other ones you can normally see.
All right, Coach. Travel ball has changed quite a bit since you were in high school. How has travel ball changed the landscape of recruiting?
It's a great question. It's changed. It has changed. It has changed quite a bit. For us, we still try really hard to kind of follow the same model that we followed when I played. From the standpoint of the reality is, and I have great respect. I played for the Indiana Bulls for 6 years. My dad helped to create the organization, and so I've been on the circuit my whole life. But the reality is, high school coaches spend far more time with all of these players than summer ball coaches, for the most part. Now, you have some organizations that train year round, right? I could think of a couple off the top of my head where that's the complete inverse, right? Where the summer ball organization is training those guys year round, and those guys are part of that. But we try really hard to watch guys in high school. We try really hard to be involved with high school coaches to get to know the kid on a personal level. And then obviously as we're going through with the summer ball organizations, we're utilizing the relationships there to get to know those guys and to be able to recruit players at a high clip through their summer ball organizations and their coaches and relationships there. So I think it's a little bit of still the old school in it, but a little bit new. I don't know that anyone is a huge fan of the early recruiting. I don't know that anyone is going to say, man, that's an ideal thing for everybody to be recruiting such an early age player. But that's kind of the world that we live in, and so we try really hard to work and navigate those waters in a really responsible way, in a very healthy way, and in a very honest way. So it has changed, but a lot of the same guiding principles that were true when I was a high school player are still true today. I think investing in and understanding that the high school coach, the high school program, that part of it is incredibly important. I think being very respectful and thoughtful with the early recruiting process, I think, is a really important piece because the reality is when we make a commitment, when we give our word, and we keep it. And that has to be when we offer a scholarship, that decision has to be very, very thoroughly vetted and thought through because we are making a commitment we are giving our word, and we are expected to keep that on our staff.
So, Coach, what's your philosophy on multi-sport athletes, and is that something you look for in a recruit?
I love multi-sport guys. I was a multi-sport guy. All my brothers were. When we were at Wright State, the vast majority of the players that we recruited were all football players. Some wrestlers, a couple basketball guys, but baseball was at best like 1B, right? It was for a lot of those guys, and maybe some of those guys, it was even their second sport. So I love the toughness. I love the weight room mentality. Like those guys know how to get in the weight room. They know how to lift weights. You don't have to, give them a dowel rod and teach them how to have you ever squatted before? It's like, oh, coach, I've never squatted at all. It's like, okay, you have to go back through and make sure you correct guys. But I like guys that know how to lift. They know how to live. They know how to compete. Everyone says compete and be tough, which is true. But all of those are byproducts of having multi-sport athletes, and so we'll always recruit those guys. But I would say this too: is you still have to be good enough. Right? You can be a multi-sport athlete, but you still have to be good enough. And I think sometimes we as coaches, we misconstrue that and say, well, we're just recruiting multi-sport guys for the sake of recruiting multi-sport guys, and we back ourselves in a corner. I played 3 sports. My brothers all did primarily recruit multi-sport guys, but you still have to be good enough, and you have to find time to do what you're passionate about. And I think that those things you're all fully capable of doing those things. During football season, I still went and hit on a Saturday or Sunday. I still got my work in. When I wrestled, I still got all my work in. And so guys can still get their work in. They can still do the things to make sure that they are able to be the baseball player they want to be. Now, multi-sport guys are normally going to have a higher ceiling. They are, because they're going to still have that helium left in them. But if we can, we do recruit multi-sport guys, but they still have to meet the requisite level of ability and functionality towards the sport.
So, Coach, a lot of the returning players had big-time results this summer. Who stood out for you and the staff the most, and is that translating into the fall workouts?
I look at a guy like Ty Bothwell had a terrific summer. Paul Waller had a really good summer. Cooper Trinkle, Jacob Southern coming in had a really good summer. Grant Richardson and Ethan had good summers. They had a little mix up here and there, but those guys had really good summers. McCade Brown was good. There was a lot of guys that had success. Reese Sharp had a good summer, and he's had a good fall so far. So a lot of those guys they've transitioned into the fall really well, and they're doing things in the summer that you would have anticipated them doing during the course of the spring. And so that was good to see, that you would see them continuing kind of their progression. They've carried that right into the fall. And the good thing about the group now is they're used to me and I'm used to them, and they know the expectation of, they know how to do the work that we would ask them to do. And so much of that, once you kind of get it, it's like pushing the flywheel, right? It's like pushing a huge rock. Like at first you go slow, and then it goes a little faster, and eventually you get by pushing in the same direction and starts to turn, and then it kind of starts to perpetuate itself. And that's kind of where we're at now, where the guys know what to do, they know how to do it, and they know the standard, and they go do those things. So I've been pleased with them this fall, especially given the circumstances, right? As we all know, I don't want to talk about COVID. Nobody wants to talk about COVID, but especially given the circumstances, I've been really pleased, and I've been really happy with how they've done.
Okay, well, that will do it for this special edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. Read up on Indiana baseball at iubase.com. Follow us on Twitter at CUAtTheBart and at IUBase17. On Instagram, it's IUBase. And subscribe to the Talking Hoosier Baseball channel on YouTube, featuring these video podcasts, game clips, game day media availabilities, and much more. For Carl James, Josh Bennett, and Coach Jeff Mercer, I'm Cassie Palmer. See you at the Bart.